The hidden war against highly intelligent loners. Schopenhauer's truth is a silent war being waged every day, a war not fought with weapons or governments, but with glances, silence, and the slow erosion of the soul. You won't see it on the news. No headlines will announce it. But if you're part of it, you feel it. It's the war against the highly intelligent loner. Against the thinker who doesn't chase approval. Against the soul that chooses solitude over noise, silence over superficiality, depth over distraction. Schopenhauer saw it clearly. He was one of them. And he warned us not just about the pain of being different, but about the hidden hostility the world directs at those who live outside the herd. We need to start with the first uncomfortable truth. Intelligence isolates. Not because intelligent people dislike others, but because they see through things. They see the absurdity in small talk. They feel the weight of existence where others feel only surface. They question where others accept. And the more you think, the more alone you become, not because you want to be alone, but because very few people can meet you where you are. Schopenhauer once wrote, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." That mystery, the unbearable vastness of life, is what intelligent loners carry every day. It doesn't make them better. It makes them burdened.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But here's where things get darker. The world doesn't just misunderstand the highly intelligent loner, it resentfully rejects them. Why? Because their very existence is a mirror, a threat. They don't play the game. They're not easily manipulated. They don't need the constant feedback loop of validation and drama. And that independence, that refusal to conform, exposes something deeply uncomfortable in others, that most people are performing, that most relationships are shallow, that most conversations are noise. The intelligent loner is not trying to expose this, but their silence does. Their absence from the crowd is a form of quiet rebellion. And the world senses this. It doesn't respond with curiosity. It responds with quiet hostility. Have you ever felt it? That moment when your presence makes people uneasy, not because you're rude or arrogant, but because you're not playing along. The way people try to draw you out, poke at your silence, make you loosen up or be more normal. It's not just social awkwardness, it's resistance. You're disrupting the script. You're showing up without a mask in a world full of actors, and the actors don't like it. Because if you're real, they have to feel their own performance. If you're deep, they have to confront their own emptiness. And most people would rather attack the mirror than see what it reflects. This is the hidden war Schopenhauer hinted at again and again. The war between the individual and the collective, between the thinker and the conventional, between the one who seeks truth and the ones who settle for comfort. And it's not a war of violence, it's a war of attrition. Life slowly wears down the intelligent loner through misunderstanding, rejection, dismissal. Through the loneliness that isn't chosen but forced. Because solitude is beautiful when you choose it. But when it's all you have, when the world shuts its gates because you think too deeply, feel too much, or refuse to pretend, that solitude becomes a kind of exile. So what do we do with this? Do we hide our intelligence? Do we force ourselves into shallow conversations just to feel less alien? Or do we lean in deeper, harder into the truth of what we are? Schopenhauer didn't offer easy answers. He knew suffering was built into existence. He believed the intelligent loner would always suffer more because they see more. They feel the tragedy of life more acutely. They can't escape into distraction or denial. But he also believed this suffering could be transformed not into happiness, but into wisdom, and that wisdom, he said, was the highest good. But let's not romanticize this path. Being a highly intelligent loner isn't glamorous. It's not aesthetic. It's hard. It means questioning your worth constantly because you don't fit in. It means wondering if something is wrong with you because you don't crave what others crave. It means carrying thoughts so complex and emotions so heavy that there's often no one to share them with. And worst of all, it means being punished subtly and persistently for being real in a world that rewards performance. So I want to ask you, have you ever felt punished just for being yourself? Not for something you did, but for how you are. For not laughing at the jokes that weren't funny. For not speaking when everyone else was shouting. For seeing through the game and deciding not to play. If you have, then you're not alone. You're part of this hidden war. And while it may feel like a curse, there is something quietly heroic about it. Because every time you choose truth over conformity, depth over distraction, solitude over fakeness, you are resisting the machinery of mediocrity. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's lonely. But Schopenhauer would say it's real. And in a world where most people are sleepwalking through life, being real is the rarest and most dangerous act of all. The pain of seeing too much. Why depth is a double-edged sword. There's a strange kind of suffering that comes not from ignorance, but from clarity, from seeing too much, feeling too deeply, understanding more than you were ever meant to. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't just write about this pain, he lived it. To him, the world wasn't a place of harmony or divine order, but a theater of blind striving, endless desire, and quiet despair. And those who saw most clearly into that theater weren't the lucky ones. They were the cursed, because the more you see, the more impossible it becomes to look away. And the more awake you are, the more alone you become. We like to think that intelligence is a gift. That insight brings freedom. But what if the opposite is also true? What if insight is a burden? Imagine walking through a world where every conversation feels like an echo, every ambition like a recycled dream, every social ritual like a script you were never meant to read. You try to play along, but something inside of you recoils. You feel the emptiness in the laughter, the desperation behind the smiles, the avoidance beneath the busyness. You notice things others don't. The subtle manipulations, the contradictions, the masks. You see the pain people hide, the lies they believe, the distractions they chase. And the worst part? You can't unsee it. This is the double-edged sword of depth. It gives you understanding, but it takes your comfort. It grants you vision, but steals your belonging. Most people don't want to see what life really is. They don't want to confront the futility of endless striving, the fragility of love, the inevitability of suffering, the absurdity of social norms. But when you have that depth, when your mind cuts through appearances like a blade, there's no going back to innocence. You're awake in a world that's mostly asleep, and that kind of consciousness can feel like exile. Schopenhauer believed that the human condition is built on a contradiction. We are driven by desire, but satisfaction is always temporary. We chase, we achieve, we hunger again, over and over. And the more intelligent you are, the more clearly you see this cycle, and the more meaningless it becomes. What motivates most people? Status, wealth, attention starts to feel hollow. You don't want what they want. You don't believe what they believe. You're not moved by the same illusions. And so naturally you drift away. Not out of arrogance, but out of truth. You can't pretend anymore. But here's the tragedy. Even when you know it's an illusion, you still feel the ache of isolation. Because no matter how independent your mind is, your heart still longs for connection. You still want to be seen, heard, understood. And yet, the very depth that makes you who you are also makes that connection nearly impossible. You speak, but others don't hear the layers. You feel, but others don't feel with the same intensity. You care, but others call it too much. So you stay quiet. You keep it all inside. And over time, that silence becomes a kind of armor, protective, but suffocating. And this is what Schopenhauer grasped so profoundly, that the deeper you go, the fewer people can follow. That solitude is the natural habitat of those who see too much. But, and this is crucial, he didn't see this as a failure. He saw it as freedom. Because the pain of depth, while alienating, also liberates you from the illusions that trap everyone else. You no longer chase what doesn't satisfy. You're no longer a slave to the endless noise. You begin to value different things: stillness, beauty, introspection, truth. You become, in a quiet way, sovereign. But that sovereignty requires a price. You must grieve the world you can no longer be part of. You must mourn the friendships that couldn't hold your truth. You must walk through loneliness not as a punishment, but as a rite of passage. And most of all, you must learn to live with the ache of seeing, without letting it turn you bitter, because that's the real danger. When you see too much, it's easy to fall into cynicism, to believe that everything is fake, everyone is shallow, nothing is worth it. But Schopenhauer, despite all his bleakness, didn't give in to that. He still believed in art, in nature, in the sublime. He understood that, even in a painful, absurd world, there are moments of transcendence, flashes of beauty that make the suffering bearable. So ask yourself, has your sensitivity become your suffering? Has your intelligence turned into isolation? And are you willing to carry that pain not as a curse but as a compass, Because the world may never fully understand you. But that doesn't mean your path isn't worthy. It means your path is rare. Against the herd, why the loner must resist the world's seduction. There's a moment every highly intelligent loner faces not once, but over and over. It's the moment the world tries to pull you back in. Not with violence, not with threats, but with something far more dangerous: seduction. The seduction of belonging. The illusion of comfort. The promise that if you just quiet your mind, dull your edge, and become a little more like everyone else, the loneliness will go away. You'll be accepted. You'll be wanted. You'll finally feel normal. And for a moment, it's tempting. For a moment you think, what if I just stopped thinking so much? What if I smiled more, talked about the weather, laughed at the jokes I don't find funny? Wouldn't life be easier? But Schopenhauer would ask, at what cost? What are you trading for that temporary warmth? This is the most subtle war of all the war, not against others, but against the soft surrender of your own integrity. The herd is not evil. It's not malicious, but it is blind. It moves by instinct, by imitation, by collective inertia. And if you're not careful, it will absorb you, not through force, but through fatigue. The pressure to conform is relentless, not because others are explicitly trying to change you, but because their way of life is so dominant, so loud, so omnipresent, that resisting it feels like madness. You're constantly surrounded by people who don't question, don't doubt, don't look deeper. And after a while, you begin to wonder if you're the one who's broken, if your solitude isn't wisdom but dysfunction. But this is where the loner must stand firm, because once you compromise your inner truth for outer comfort, you begin to disappear. Not all at once, but slowly. You laugh at things that don't amuse you. You agree with things you don't believe. You engage in conversations that feel like sandpaper to your mind. And one day you wake up and realize you've become someone else. You've traded your clarity for company, your depth for approval. And Schopenhauer would say, you've lost the only thing that was ever truly yours yourself. The loner's resistance is not passive. It's an active, daily discipline. It's choosing silence when noise is easier. It's choosing thought when distraction is everywhere. It's asking difficult questions when the world rewards easy answers. And it's being willing to walk alone, not because you enjoy the isolation, but because you refuse to betray the truth you've seen. That truth, however painful, is sacred. It is the anchor of your identity. And when you abandon it to feel less strange, you become a stranger to yourself. But let's be honest, this resistance is hard. It's tiring. There will be days when the world feels like it's passing you by, people laughing in groups, celebrating things you don't care about, succeeding in games you refuse to play. And you'll feel the ache of being outside it all. You'll feel the chill of not belonging. And in those moments, your mind will whisper, just give in. Just be like them. You're tired of being different. But that's exactly when you must remember. The herd does not lead to truth. It leads to comfort. Yes, but comfort is not the same as meaning. Comfort is not the same as freedom. Schopenhauer believed that the crowd lives in illusion because it must. It cannot bear the weight of reality. But the philosopher, the loner, the observer, they bear it voluntarily. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they value truth above ease. And that value system is what sets them apart. The loner is not superior, but they are awake. And staying awake in a sleeping world is a form of rebellion. So I ask you, what are you willing to suffer for your truth? How much loneliness can you endure before you dilute yourself for warmth? And if you do conform, what happens to the part of you that was meant to lead, to see, to create, to question? The world will always offer you a seat at the table as long as you don't speak too loudly, think too deeply, or see too clearly. But if you decline that offer, if you walk your own path, if you resist the seduction of the herd, you may not have as much company, but you will have something far more rare: freedom. The sublime solitude, how to turn alienation into power. What if solitude isn't just the price we pay for being different, but the very source of our power? What if the alienation we carry, the strange ache of not fitting in, is not a flaw in the system, but a call to rise above it? Schopenhauer didn't just endure solitude, he revered it. To him, the thinker, the artist, the philosopher must be solitary, not because they hate the world, but because the world's noise threatens the clarity of their vision. Solitude was not exile, it was elevation. And that's the shift we must make if we are to survive the hidden war against us. Because the truth is, Alienation is only agony when we resist it, when we believe we're supposed to fit in, when we think our difference is a defect. But what if we saw it differently? What if we stopped asking why we're not like everyone else and started asking what our difference is for? Because intelligence, depth, sensitivity, they're not meant for mimicry. They're meant for creation. Insight is not given to you so you can fit in. It's given so you can illuminate. The problem is, most people wait for the world to validate their uniqueness before they use it. But the world won't. The world is designed for the average. It rewards the familiar. So if you're waiting for permission to shine in a way the crowd doesn't understand, you'll wait forever. This is where solitude becomes sublime. When you stop seeing it as a punishment and start seeing it as space. Space to think. Space to feel. Space to grow. When you're no longer bombarded by other people's expectations, you begin to hear something else, your own voice. The voice that was buried under layers of social obligation, fear of judgment, and the desperate need to belong. That voice is the source of your genius. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It whispers. And only in silence, in solitude, can you learn to hear it. Schopenhauer believed that the truly noble spirit must retreat from the world not out of contempt, but out of necessity. Because the world distracts, distorts, dilutes, but solitude clarifies. It sharpens your focus. It returns you to your essence. And in that essence you find not just insight but power. The power to create from within. To build a life that reflects who you are, not what the world demands. To write, to think, to design. To move with a kind of internal authority that can't be shaken by trends, opinions, or rejection. But let's be honest, this path is not glamorous. It won't make you popular. It won't give you 100 friends or 1 million followers. What it gives you is something rarer, authenticity. And from that authenticity comes alignment. And from alignment, peace. Not the peace of comfort, but the peace of integrity. Of knowing that you did not betray yourself to be liked. That you did not shrink to be included. That you stood alone when it mattered most. And in doing so, found something unshakable inside you. So the question becomes, can you transform your alienation into art? Your solitude into strength? Your difference into direction? Can you take the very thing that made you feel like an outsider and turn it into the foundation of your life's work? Because that is the hidden truth Schopenhauer left behind, not just that the highly intelligent loner suffers, but that within that suffering lies the seed of greatness. You don't need to be understood. You need to be true. You don't need to be accepted by the crowd. You need to accept yourself. And the moment you do, your solitude stops being a cage and becomes a kingdom. So if you walk alone, walk tall. If you speak differently, speak clearly. If you see more, dare to say it. Because while the world may not reward you for being real, reality will. And the quiet, powerful life you build in solitude will echo louder than all the noise you left behind. That is the hidden war. And that is how you win it.